So we've finally gotten a reboot on Clive Barker's Hellraiser franchise. So does it absolve us of the decades of suffering through substandard sequels? Well, let's unlock that mystery and find out. Riley, a young woman struggling with addiction, comes into possession of an ancient puzzle box, unaware that its purpose is to summon the Cenobites, a group of sadistic supernatural beings from another dimension. When her brother falls prey to the unknown consequences of this, she becomes determined to unlock this grisly puzzle, but at a horrific cost to her own soul. So 2022's Hellraiser comes to us from director David Bruckner, with a screenplay by his Night House collaborators Ben Collins and Luke Petrosky, with additional story credit by producer David S. Goyer, and it's been about 15 years in the making. There's been constant rumors here and there and everywhere about doing a remake of Hellraiser that's been kind of on and off in different places from different companies here and there. But thankfully about 2 years ago, Clive Barker got into a legal situation where he actually got the rights back to the entire Hellraiser franchise, so that's a great type of thing, because I was always like, with all these disposable sequels they kept churning out because Miramax Dimension Films kept trying to hold on to the rights and just churn out any old crap they could put a Hellraiser name on, slip some Cenobites and a puzzle box into. They just manufactured other scripts into Hellraiser movies without really caring much about anything, just keep the rights so they can keep doing things despite the fact they did nothing worthwhile with them. But now that Clive Barker was back involved and had a creative control and had an idea where he wanted to go with things and kind of trusted to other people that he had a stamp of approval on, was just something that I was very excited about, because without Clive Barker, it's just been kind of a nothing franchise that's gone kind of nowhere and gone right down the toilet. So the entire thing, getting up to this whole thing where it debuted on Hulu in the United States, it's kind of trickling out to different places internationally, because Paramount's handling the rights internationally and Spyglass Media is kind of dealing with Hulu here in the United States, so still working on some rights in like the United Kingdom and some other places, so not worldwide available yet. But the fact is, it is a very good film. It's not everything I would have hoped for a Hellraiser remake. One thing, it doesn't quite have as much scope as I kind of hoped for in terms of like the cinematography, the visual style. There's a lot of creepy atmospheric visuals in the film, but when you look back at something like Prey that came out on Hulu just a little while ago, definitely everyone was talking about this thing would have played so well on a big screen. It had such a great scope to it. Very special cinematography style that really played on a big screen. This one feels just about right for streaming. Didn't feel like it really needed a theatrical experience to really get more out of it. But overall, the entire thing is very good, with a few shortcomings, a few caveats I feel like could have pushed it further along if they really delved further deeper into different elements. But two standout things in the whole film is definitely two performances here. One, Jamie Clayton stepping into the new Pinhead here, because Doug Bradley kind of like stepped away from the role. He didn't do the last two sequels, were just done really slapdash, and he wasn't very interested in the whole thing. So he's been away from the role for a long time and didn't want to accept a weird sort of little cameo role that kind of amounted to nothing for him. So he was very supportive about Jamie Clayton stepping into the role. And the whole thing was like, back in the original Hellbound Heart novella, the lead Cenobite that would end up becoming Pinhead end up being something that was described as having like a female voice, but kind of twisted up and kind of mutilated to a certain degree where you really couldn't discern a certain gender for the character. So completely happy with getting a gender swap in the whole thing, and Jamie Clayton just absolutely nails the hell out of it. Just that cold, sort of heartless passion of the Cenobites is so perfectly nailed, with such great detail and exactly what she's bringing forth. Just such a great presence that's so chilling. Absolutely fantastic for work from her. Just like, love the design of the Cenobites and the whole thing, where they kind of ditched all the leather stuff, because it's kind of a passe type of thing, having leather and bondage and stuff like that. Went for a much more elaborate, interesting thing where they kind of mutilated and twisted the flesh up into this sort of walking work of art to a certain degree. It's absolutely fantastic type of stuff. Just didn't spare any expense on the effects on this film. The visual effects, practical makeup effects are absolutely top-notch type of stuff. The whole thing, fantastic type of work. But Jamie Clayton really just takes this and make her own, and is absolutely fantastic. Wouldn't mind seeing a whole bunch more of her in the role. Awesome type of stuff. But Odessa Zion does a fantastic job in this whole thing as Riley. Just like the fact that the character is kind of this, a character's a little on the fringe to a certain degree. She's this recovering substance abuser. She has this sort of friction with her brother Michael that kind of moves the story to certain degrees in certain places, where it kind of brings an arc to the character where she has to make certain decisions about this entire puzzle box that's going along in this very ghastly and haunting type of journey for herself. I just thought she just was extremely emotive in the entire film, just had a lot of fire and passion, just like everything you'd want plus extra on top of it to really make this a very blockbuster role. I just think I'm very much interested in whatever else she's doing right now. Apparently she's got another horror film out on streaming right now called The Inhabitants. Looks very interesting to me. I'll definitely probably give it a try. So I just think she's really blockbuster in the entire role. Brings a lot of qualities, a lot of depth to the entire performance here. Just shines so extremely well. Just all the horror and just the anguish the character has to go through as she's making these different turns in the plot. Absolutely fantastic type of work from here. And supporting cast is well acted. I don't think they're written quite as dimensionally as they possibly could have been to get more out of them, but they do support the film very well and do a good job overall. So I didn't feel like there was any weak performances. I just felt like maybe some supporting characters could have had a little bit more meat to their entire development as characters in their film, but they serve the plot very nicely. And like I said, just all the stuff with the effects and that, just the fact that the film is fucking intense. It's just intense, fairly gory film, as Hellraiser should be, but I thought they just did some real skin-crawling, creepy type of things in the entire film. They were just intense type of stuff. I just felt like after the film was over, I needed some time to just kind of decompress for the whole thing. I was really just amped up to a certain degree. I just got the blood pumping and just the fear going and stuff like that. Very effective work on that front. And it was really nice getting the entire thing. They actually brought back a lot of the Christopher Young score from the original two Hellraiser films that he worked on. It just added so much more, just hearing those themes woven into the entire score here. And the fact that it's like not just that, but they kind of like take that and kind of expand upon it, kind of have layered elements of it throughout the entire score, working with the melodies and that type of sound overall. Wonderful, beautiful type of stuff from Ben Lovett on the whole thing. Wonderful score on that front. But I felt that the kind of shortcomings on the entire film, where they got a very good story here, getting in the thing with Riley, and she's got to get this puzzle box in through kind of odd means in a certain way, and subversive type of things happen, and she kind of gets roped into the entire configuration of this whole thing that keeps changing every so often as it starts to take different people in a certain way. I like the whole thing where they did kind of meld a new mythology, that you kind of had to push all the stuff you knew from all the other Hellraiser films out of your head and let them start a brand new, fresh mythology here, because they just take things like the puzzle box and make it much more kind of like a ritualistic type of thing, that you have to go through a certain amount of configuration to unlock something more deeper from Leviathan's realm and stuff like that. A bit more intricate to a certain degree. I like that they kept going along with that, and just like as the film went along, I liked more and more what it was doing with those mythology elements and kind of fashioning a new idea from it. But I felt like the film lacked a certain thematic material, because Clive Barker's stuff is so rich with depth of themes and different things to say about itself, and kind of weave these tales around with such fantastic mythologies and stuff like that. I felt like the film just needed something more layered on top of it to kind of pull everything together under a certain banner to a certain degree. It just felt like it wasn't completely galvanized, aside from the aesthetics, as a Hellraiser film. It just felt like there needed to be something more woven through the entire story here to make it more thematically strong to a certain degree. So I felt a little lackluster on that front, because that's kind of like the main thing, because you look back at the original Hellraiser film, it had those ideas of pain, pleasure, lust, passion, stuff like that, all the things that could drive you to do some very horrendous, evil type of things. I like that twisting psychology that the film employed to make that a much more fascinating, intriguing type of story here. And not like they had to do the exact same thing here, but just have something that is thematic to kind of tie all the elements together much more strongly, and just have something more deeper to say about the entire mythology overall. So there are certain elements towards the end of the film when you kind of learn the sort of like the background elements that kind of play in the entire story here, but it is not kind of present through the entire course of the film here. So I feel like there's a little extra element that could have been injected in the screenplay to really make it much more meaty. But overall, I think they did a really good job in this whole thing. I think it's just a very well put together. There's a lot of skill involved with what they're doing here. They're doing no cheap scares in the whole thing. It really is atmosphere, mood, suspense type of things. They're really getting the blood curdling stuff going when you have to. It's a very well put together and very smart screenplay to a certain degree. I just think they did a very nice job to get it. Like I said, it's not everything I would have hoped for a Hellraiser thing. I would have expected something, just again, something deeper, a little bit more scope to it to a certain degree, but they really kind of brought in elements from like at least the first two Hellraiser films, got a little bit more deeper into certain mythologies of Leviathan and the puzzle box and certain other things, right? Exploring deeper into that realm, but still telling a bit of a personal story to it to a certain degree. So still felt it was pretty damn good on that front, but I felt like there's still little elements where it just kind of fell short. Like some of these sort of later Hellraiser screenplays where it feels like it kind of just injected the Hellraiser stuff into it and you didn't really kind of tie it as deeply into the story as possible, but I still think this is way better than a lot of those other goddamn Hellraiser sequels that are just really not terribly good type of things. I think it still had a very good handle on what defines Hellraiser. I just feel like they need to go a little deeper with everything they're going for, but they cast two fantastic roles in the entire thing. Jamie Clayton, Odessa, Zion. Fantastic type of things. I like, again, they got the score from Christopher Young floated in this entire thing, and still using a lot of the same design elements from what you had before, but still adding new things on top of it to make it feel fresh, feel like a new angle on certain things while still being faithful to what you had before. So you definitely see the Clive Barker elements and the touches on the whole thing. So I think it's pretty damn good. I think it's a way better thing that we've had from Hellraiser from a very long time. Way more of a horror film that this franchise has had in an extremely long time. I think it's a very good piece of work. So if you're able to go check it out on Hulu here in the United States, North America, go check it out. I think it's well worth seeing. If you're in international territories, kind of see around where the things are kind of landing here and there. If they're getting other streaming rights, they're going to put out somewhere else in some kind of like physical format or some other thing. It's definitely worth checking out. I really want to hear what you guys feel about this new Hellraiser thing. If you've seen it already, let me know what you feel about it. And of course, there's always the Super Thanks feature right here on YouTube to give something to the channel to kind of support things around here, or you can hit up the Patreon to get a little early access to things every month. But guys, thanks so much. Take care.